Paltrocast. My first question for you, does anyone get to call you Rich or Rick, or are you Richard to everybody on the planet?
Darren, what it is everybody calls me whatever they want. And when I was a kid, I actually had a nickname Dick, Little Dicky as well. And for some reasons, you can probably imagine, I was like, hey, maybe we don't do that anymore when I got a little older. Yep.
But now that's a huge rapper, Lil Dicky, who with
Yeah, yeah.
X. So you pioneered
Unfortunately,
it. I want you to take that trademark back, okay?
unfortunately, I don't have that skill.
Well, anyway, one of the things you do have skills in is finishing documentaries that you start, and Unconditional is that. This is not, and I'm getting the vibe, it was not easy to make because it's a serious topic. You have A-list people in there besides yourself. How long was it from coming up with the concept to finishing it?
7 years. And it was one of those things where I didn't even, you're right about that. When I started, I didn't think it was going to take 7 years, number one. Number two, now that I've sort of hit I'm done button,
Mhm.
and you know this, the I'm done button sometimes gets reopened and then shut again, but this time I believe it's done. Is I think that the weight of what I actually had on my back, if you will, during that time, I realized is probably 40 or 50% heavier than it was when I was going through it.
Mhm.
And that was surprising to me because I thought I understood how difficult it was as I was doing it, but I didn't.
Yeah, usually when you have a documentary and you see it's executive produced by major people like Maria Shriver, Laurie Hernandez, Lauren Rogan, Montel Williams, etc., usually that's the hardest part of the documentary, getting everyone to agree on the thing. And it seems like that was the lightest lifting on this whole thing, getting a bunch of people to go, yep, Richard's good.
Yeah, the way it works. First of all, we're so glad to have Maria Shriver with, again, her movement, WHAM, with the Women's Alzheimer's movement, and then we have Laurie Hernandez, who is as a gold medalist, has really come out talking about mental health writ large, which is fantastic because it's as you know a topic that is just not well understood, not well discussed.
Right.
And Montel is a great guy. He will show up anytime, anywhere when it comes to mental health, caregiving, and the military community. And that's fantastic as well. And then Lauren Rogan, who you know very well with HFC, Hilarity for Charity, has really done some amazing work about the reality of you can still laugh
Mhm.
and still be going through this. So we're really honored to have those four executive producers along the way because they got what we're trying to do. And as you know, sometimes you get those that really sink in with your mission, and all four really synced.
Yeah. Well, credit also goes to you in terms of the rollout of this film, that it's Amazon Prime bound or Prime Video. What's the correct verbiage so I don't get prosecuted these days? Is it Prime Video?
Yeah, Amazon. Well, we say Amazon Prime. Yeah,
I think in this country it's Prime Video, and then in other countries it's Amazon Video, and then others, I don't know, not my problem.
above
But
my pay grade.
you got that. You have the soundtrack that's coming out on Universal. PBS is behind it, et cetera, et cetera. Was it you being this well-connected gentleman, or is it that you have a great team behind you and the executive producers were able to make it go wide like this?
It's everything, Darren, as you know. I'll knock on the door and I'll say, "This is the team behind us. Would you like to listen and would you like to meet?" And when we say that we believe we're so widely distributed, it's really just, I think, a testament that so many folks know this is an important topic.
Mhm.
So with Amazon Prime, with PBS, and getting 90% coverage across the country, MSNBC, it was on about 2 weeks ago when we heard that we were number one in cable for our cable premiere. We're like, whoa! I mean, we did not. This topic is not, when you're flipping through. I get it. You get it. It's not
Yeah.
like you say, "Oh, Unconditional, a movie about one of the most emotional topics today, mental health and caregiving in the military community." That's not necessarily what you stop at. So when we saw that, all of these different platforms were saying yes and yes. AMC theaters
Yeah.
for a week in most major markets across the country for our Oscar qualifying run. I mean, these are because folks want to lean in and help. And
Mhm.
sometimes when we think of the movie stuff, as you know, you and I understand it very well, being in media, is that it seems to be this big behemoth that ain't going to listen to stuff like this. And no, they are listening.
Yeah, these are a bunch of organizations or channels that 20 years ago, these things would not be working together. Yet, obviously, people are concerned about this topic,
Yep.
interested in the topic,
Yep.
and you're getting a wider release than just about anything that I can think of that's a comedy these days.
Yeah, and to get it across at the same time, because as you know, it's generally linear.
Yeah.
Sorry for folks that are watching this and we're getting into the weeds, but we got them all to happen at the same time. And then when we played it at the White House, Darren, that was like, I had to pinch myself and say, you know, I call it the most exclusive movie theater in the world. Because there aren't a lot of films that get shown in that theater, and it's been around for what, I guess 75 years, I think, the theater. And when the First Lady hosted us in the East Garden, the Jackie Kennedy Garden, all these things were just saying, I think we did this nonprofit project for a reason, to bring awareness, and hoping that people would agree that it was good enough and that it's also an important topic. And so we feel very grateful all along the way. And for instance, you deciding to reach out to us to talk about this is also a part of that.
Well, thank you. When you mentioned being showcased at the White House, it's a very, very short list, not just movies, but entertainment in general. So it's basically, in the last 10 years, it's been you, Dave Grohl, Paul McCartney, Psy. I remember he did Gangnam Style for a private concert for Obama. So I think that in your updated bio, you know, that puts you in rare company. Me, Psy, Dave Grohl, Fogerty. I think that's all really. But hey, back to you here. You know, you've got a very fascinating career in that there's not only Unconditional, but you on MSNBC, being a journalist, etc. Most journalists are not camera ready. They're afraid of having their voice out there. When did you realize that there was going to be that jump in your career from the written word to actually presenting it on camera?
I didn't. You know, Darren, jumping over to being a journalist for me was, you know, I did some stuff, and you know how things just, it's kind of like a skipping rock. And so if you take that pebble for me and that rock, the first time it landed was when I was in high school, and I did a little writing at a church camp. Then after that, it was when I was in college and I worked at the radio station for news. And I mean, these are like, and then I stopped. I worked for, you know, 10, 15 years, then I came back to it. And so like a lot of things that we find in our lives, they kind of skip along, and sometimes they land. And so I've stuck with it for the last 10 or 15 years. And so that's why when it comes to these long form projects, Unconditional now, Sky Blossom before for the first film, it took a lot of adjustment for me. But the journalism did help, but it's an adjustment. I mean, doing a movie is totally different in many ways than what I do every day. I'm used to editing for 2 hours, 3 hours. And we were editing for 2 years on Unconditional, 2 years.
I compare that to how much work goes into one of my articles versus how much work is going into my book that's coming out. For you, how many broadcasts you're doing versus the long form, because it's not like you have to do hours upon hours of media to promote one of your broadcasts. I mean, you're a team player, but you know, for every 500 broadcasts in the prep work, that's a feature film at least.
Exactly. I mean, that was your comparison of your articles versus your book is a great one, right? Because all of a sudden these long, I mean, it's a year for after you send in your manuscript, right? You're not going to see it for 6 to 12 months.
Totally. Yeah, my book has been done for months, and I don't think it comes out for 6 more.
Exactly. It's the weirdest thing.
So the painstaking process of you not only being the focal point of this documentary, but also behind the scenes, directing, producing, doing the media. Are you clamoring for the next project, or do you need to take a really long vacation in the
you know, that patience, Darren, that you're talking about, all the little bits that make the big bit, is something I don't know why filmmakers do it. I mean, I got it to independent filmmakers. As I was going through the second time, I was like, why? I mean, Yeah, it's so difficult. It takes so long.
Yeah.
It's so expensive. You got to raise the money, and they do it. It's their career. Hats off to all those independent, filmmakers, truly. And I have now, when I see that word now, independent filmmaker, I respect it a whole lot more and appreciate what the story they're trying to tell. It's so driven, like the name of your book, the purpose of your book, everything as you were going through it. There's something that drove you to do it, because it's similar to that. I mean, not
Being a
all of us
glutton
get to
for
be,
punishment, I think, is
yeah, not all of us get to be Grisham, right? And right, or Harry Potter authors, right?
sure.
We're not those folks necessarily. So yes, there's a third one. I am planning on that one, and that I think will be it. That's it, because that's like, how many more times can I poke myself in the eye?
Well, I mean, once you're the executive producer and your name greenlights the stuff, then you could do it 25 times. But yeah, you as the focal point, three and done. But uh, last question I've got for you. We don't know a lot about you, the human being, besides the work you do, which I'm sure is by design because you're supposed to be impartial when you're presenting news and coverage of things. But where does your free time usually go?
It goes into these projects. I started working 3 days a week so I could take care of my father, who had Alzheimer's, and now my mother, who has dementia and vascular dementia specifically. But these projects I found have been the therapy, the stuff I enjoy to do
Hmm.
on the side, because it's all not nonprofit or not for profit work,
Hmm.
and I love it. I really do. And outside of that, I do like to travel here and there, or ride a bike. That's really complex. I assume you in New York, Chicago?
Long Beach, Long Island, New York. Ever been out here
Yeah, I have, but briefly. Yes, I've done some reporting,
on
and
the boardwalk?
yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I like to get out on a bike. I love to go to the beach when I can. I do like sun. So I'm pretty, like, not very interesting when it comes to that stuff. But a lot of community projects, Darren, really do keep me moving and keep me thinking. Um, and it's how I've approached the projects too, to bring in both my reporting and community work together,
Hmm.
and bring in all those flavors, and show how they really do taste pretty good. So yeah, that's what I kind of do.
Well, I'm all out of questions, Richard, and I applaud you for seeing this personal, yet star-studded project along, finishing it the 7 years. No one wants to work on anything for 7 years. So congratulations on all that, and really hope the reviews and commercial success follow, as I think they will.
Thank you, Darren. Yeah, covering mental health and caregiving is not easy. I think our challenge today is to get around mental health equaling mental illness. That's, I think, a cultural problem that we have. And what I do think has been good over the last 3 years is that now we can discuss it without it feeling like, oh, don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Instead, the door is a little bit wider open, where we can say, oh yeah, I'm a little chubby in the belly. Got a couple extra pounds. We can now say we got a couple pounds on the brain, right? And when we can get there and talk about it that way, I think we're in a better place. And that's why we really wanted to go through this project, even though it did take a couple of days to get done. So thanks, Darren.
Paltrocast.